Yeah, I walked out the same way, and we're up at the press.
Is Hastings or Buchanan? Okay, we got everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all for being here. I just wanted to say that we just came out of a briefing conducted by DHS and FBI for the entire Florida delegation to talk about the Russian hacking of our election systems. This briefing came about because as a former national security specialist, I was deeply concerned when I read in the Mueller report that one Florida county had been hacked. And so I was glad to work with my colleague, Rep. Waltz, to write a letter requesting this briefing. This issue is not a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. This is an American issue, and the public deserves to know what happened, as well as to know what is being done to ensure that this doesn't happen again, so that they have full faith and confidence in the election system as well as our democracy. We can now confirm that a second county was breached, and I find that more than 2 years after the 2016 election, the public still doesn't know the names of these counties and what the government is doing to prevent it from happening again. I think that's unacceptable. Because we received a classified briefing, we will be restricted in what we will be able to tell you. But rest assured, we are working hard to continue to demand that the FBI reconsider their classification so that we can provide more information to the public. The public needs to know which counties were hacked and what steps are being taken to hold the bad actors accountable. And I believe that this lack of transparency is counterproductive. I'm concerned that it's going to erode the public confidence in our election systems as well as our democracy, and we are headed into another election. It is our responsibility as elected officials to ensure that we support our democracy by reinforcing our election systems. I'm deeply concerned with the timely notification, or the lack thereof in this case. Consumers, voters, individuals are accustomed that when their credit card information is breached, or whether their social media accounts are breached, that they are notified in a timely manner, because that data belongs to them. Voters have the same right. It is their voter registration information, and if it has been breached, they deserve to know. And to date, the voters still don't know. The voters in these two counties still don't know. And so we will be working on legislation to look at how the federal government and the state and local authorities are notified in cases of successful intrusion, and continue to work together in a bipartisan way and with the delegation to secure our elections and ensure timely notification of our to the voters in our state. With that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Rep. Waltz.
Thank you, Representative Murphy, and I want to echo a few things. One, this is a bipartisan issue. This is an American security and a national security issue. I think we have to be very clear to draw a very bright line between the Mueller investigation and the issue of collusion, which has been clear that there was not any, versus the issue that a critical infrastructure, our electoral system, the heart of our democracy, is under attack consistently and persistently from a foreign actor. One of the things that we learned in this briefing is that the Russians attempted to penetrate at the county level local systems in all 50 states. As we know from the Mueller report, they were successful in at least one county. We're confirming now that it was 2 counties in Florida. For reasons that I'm sure you all will ask, but we have been asked by the FBI to keep those counties confidential to protect their sources and methods. However, we have very clearly and very forcefully asked the FBI to declassify that information. We think that the voters and Floridians deserve to know. They not only deserve to know what happened, but they deserve to know what we're doing to protect the elections going forward. Some of the things that Representative Murphy and my other colleagues and I are going to work on and take a hard look at, and we asked a lot of questions about, is the nature of the communication between the Bureau and these local and state officials. For example, participation in many of the cyber hygiene programs and many of the notification programs are voluntary. We're going to take a hard look at whether that should be mandatory. If not at the state level, then at the national level. I sit along with Representative Gates on the Armed Services Committee. I think we need to take a hard look at the civilian versus military dynamic, that if we are under attack from foreign state actors, not necessarily criminal actors, is that a military issue? We need to take a hard look at the fact that our authorities are resting with the Department of Homeland Security and with the FBI, yet much of our capabilities are with the National Security Agency, Cybercom, and DoD. Right now they're in a supporting role, but those lines tend to get very blurred, and whether those authorities are very clear and whether the coordination is very clear. I do want to say and stress that the Bureau said there was no evidence, that they were very clear that the voter rolls were not tampered, that the election overall results were not affected, and that they had no evidence that the voter databases were tampered with. But I think there's more to follow there, and we have a lot of questions across our delegation on how the FBI came to that determination and what they're doing to protect things going forward. And then I think we also need to be very clear about who the victims are here. The victims are the voters, and the victim of these attacks are our democracy and our constitutional republic. And we, as elected officials, need to ensure that that's protected. That's what we intend to do. That's the legislation that Representative Murphy and our delegation is working on going forward. And then finally, I think it is one of the things that we are going to get to the bottom of very quickly is that the Bureau informed us that 66 of the 67 counties are participating in a program where they have sensors to help detect these types of intrusions, but we were surprised to learn that Palm Beach County, under the previous supervisor, had not participated, and we have a lot of questions with the ongoing discussions of why currently the current election supervisor regime has not participated, because this is an ongoing issue and discussion between DHS, state officials, and the county officials. We need to ensure our elections are safe heading into 2020, and that every American that votes is confident that vote is going to count in the way that they intended. Thank you so much.
I want to take a moment to just describe, using public information for all Floridians, what happened. So we had Russian actors using phishing emails where if you click on the attachment, you'll gain access to a system. They sent these to all 67 counties. Unfortunately, 2 counties had employees that did click on those emails, and they gained limited access. There has been no evidence that it has affected vote totals or voting information, but we have continued to request that the FBI continue to examine that information. Subsequent to the election, there are systems in place in 66 of the 67 counties to help employees to make sure our supervisors of elections aren't being subject to these phishing emails anymore and getting sufficient warnings. There is also education that these counties have also undergone to avoid having them be victims of phishing emails. And as we go forward, the House has already passed out legislation to provide grants and beef up security in the cybersecurity area before our next election. And it's absolutely critical that we work together on both sides of the aisle to have that program. Just a little bit in Spanish, because I believe we have some Spanish media here. Esta es una historia muy fácil. Los rusos usan correo electrónico con archivos corruptos para tener una intrusión, acceso en los supervisors de elecciones. Y era 67 condados donde ellos tratan para tener este acceso. En 2 condados empleados abrieron estos archivos y el acceso limitó. La evidencia del FBI dice que no hay un cambio en la vota o otra información, pero nosotros todavía estamos tratando para tener más información. Después de la elección, nosotros tenemos sensores y programas para parar estos correos electrónicos y estos problemas con estos archivos para prevenir por ocurriendo en elecciones en el futuro, y nosotros pasamos un proyecto de ley en la Cámara de los Estados Unidos para tener más fondos y tecnología por prevención de fraude de la elección y intrusión, y yo creo que el Senado va a pasar este proyecto de ley. Gracias.
The FBI and Department of Homeland Security have not been sufficiently forthcoming with the American people or members of the United States Congress. We learned today that in addition to the 2 successful attempts to breach our election infrastructure, there were additional unsuccessful attempts in additional Florida counties. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security will not share those counties with members of Congress despite being pressed just moments ago. The reason the FBI will not share the identity of these counties or the identity of the 2 counties where breaches were more successful is because they maintain that county supervisor of elections offices are victims, and thus under the broad victim protocols that are open source information under the FBI, that we want victims to come forward and thus we will protect their identity. That rationale is ludicrous. The victims in these cases are not government office holders. The victims are voters. And the victim truly is the integrity that we have to have and the trust we have to have in the American election system. It is not the case that keeping information from the public enhances trust or reporting or our highest equities in protecting our election. My colleagues and I are working in a bipartisan way to ensure that we increase mandatory reporting, not only from the FBI to Congress, but also from our local partners in the election system, so that there is an accurate and timely upflow of information that could impact national elections. It's my hope that the FBI will reconsider the decisions that they've made, and it is also my hope that the Department of Homeland Security will not continue to maintain that involving the Department of Defense is unnecessary or unneeded. A foreign military attacked our election system, and at this time, our own military doesn't even know the location of those attacks. We have to do better, and it's my hope that upon reflection, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security will reconsider their position on these issues.
As a member of the Judiciary Committee, one thing was clear from the Mueller report, and that was that Russia had successfully interfered in our election process. And today we confirmed that they were successful in entering 2 electoral structures in 2 counties in Florida. We have 2 different perspectives. One united voice, one bipartisan united voice from all the Florida delegation, which is that we need to make sure that we don't allow this to happen again in the 2020 elections. But one thing that was very concerning to me was that we couldn't get with certainty the verification that the Russians actually were not able to manipulate the data that they had access to. They found no evidence of that, but they couldn't say with certainty that they did not manipulate that data. And that's something that is concerning to me. We still have a lot of questions from the delegation. We have asked the FBI to provide us with more information on the counties that Representative Getz just mentioned. There were other counties where they were able to enter the garage, but not really the house, is the way that they were explaining to us. I want to make sure that another part of our the Russian interference was undermining the confidence of our voters. And this is incredibly important as we head into the 2020 elections. And I want to make sure that all Floridians know that your Congress members are in close communication with the FBI, with the Department of Homeland Security. Myself, I will make sure that my supervisor of elections, both in Monroe County and Miami-Dade County, have the information that they need so that they receive the technical assistance that they need as we prepare for 2020, and they get the training that they need, which is fully available right now from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security. So let's make sure that we continue to work to provide confidence to all of our voters that we are here in D.C. working closely with these agencies so that we can protect your vote, because it's important for you to know that right now we have enough information to make sure that we prevent this from happening in 2020. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we'll take questions. Do you want to call them?
Yeah, Samantha.
Congresswoman, after this briefing, are you confident that the security of the election system going forward is secure, or after receiving this briefing, are there some questions about the security moving into 2020?
I think that there's more work that needs to be done. When it comes to our elections, we must leave no stone unturned as far as finding out the exact details of what happened and how we address every step, every type of potential attack. So there's more that we need to do.
Sammy.
Under the rules that the FBI has to abide by at the Justice Department, the Attorney General's guidelines, there's a duty to warn. Did the FBI explain why they did not feel that they needed to warn these counties about what was happening? And then secondly, is there any indication that what the Russians did in 2016, that they came back and tried to do again in 2018 during the last round?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the first part, but let me just answer the second question. It's just that we are under constant attack, not just by the Russians, but by other entities, nation states, as well as foreign entities that are bad actors. So this is our security and our cyber vulnerabilities exist, and we are under constant attack. That's why we have to be vigilant.
I think just to answer your question, the FBI has what's called flash warnings.
Just
to answer your question, on the warning issue, the FBI briefed us that they did send multiple warnings. Did have a conference call with elected officials, did receive some back and forth with the private vendors that are running both the voter software that holds the voter database and the election system. So there was a healthy back and forth in terms of the FBI dealing directly with several of the counties, and several of the counties proactively came back to them and said, we've looked at our systems. I believe the number was 11, and they did not see any intrusions. It was after that two of the counties came forward and said that we have seen some suspicious activities, and then the FBI deployed. What is not satisfactory, at least to me, and I think to several of the members, is why now in 2019 we find out about this in kind of in a haphazard way through a line buried on the Mueller report, and had it not been for the letter that Representative Murphy and I sent and demanded this briefing, we still wouldn't know what information we know today. So why Congress, who authorizes and appropriates the funds to protect our system, wasn't in the loop in this notification system, why we had to ask for the briefing now, 3 years on, that notification system is still not clear to us, and we have demanded that both the FBI and DHS go back and take a very hard look at that, because frankly it's unacceptable, and it's still unacceptable in my mind that we can't inform the voters in the affected counties of exactly what happened and exactly what's been done going forward.
Considering how long this process was to get this information out there, how much do you think there is still about 2016 and about what Russia was able to access that the public still doesn't know?
Well, I think there, obviously there's been a very thorough investigation led by former FBI Director Mueller. I think that they feel, because I'm seeing this on the military side as well, on the Armed Services Committee, I think, they feel like they've learned a lot and have made a lot of progress, and that we did much better in 2018. But that said, the level of adversarial activity wasn't nearly as active in a midterm election as they expect it to be in a presidential election. So I think we have a long way to go. Keep in mind, our elections are at the county level. There's over 9,000 counties. That is a lot of education. That's a lot of different processes. That's a lot of different systems in place. And I think that's why we're going to look and work with our colleagues in Tallahassee, but also look at some federal mandates that I think everyone should have to participate in.
Do you think there were more counties, though, in 2016 that were breached across the country that we still don't know about?
So one piece that was what's that?
It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. One piece that was interesting was one of the things that piqued the FBI's interest was apparently an attempted intrusion in Illinois that then shifted a lot of their focus and focus, but it could have been. I mean, again, what the FBI has come forward with is they have no evidence that the voter database was tampered with, but what their level of confidence was unclear.
Sorry, shoot.
Oh, excuse me.
You're discussing going through the declassification process. That can take a long time. Is it reasonable to expect that that information would be released before the 2020 election sets in?
They said that they committed to going back and up the chain, basically, to see whether or not they'd be able to declassify. But there are the two main reasons why they have classified this is victim protection and then protecting methods and sources. And they said that on the methods and sources piece, they would continually review to see if it got to a place where they could release the information. What we have told them, though, is that it is untenable to continue to hold this information classified and not to let the public know, especially for those voters in the counties that were affected. This chaotic kind of drip drabs of information that's coming out is doing more harm to our constituents' faith in the electoral system than just coming out and providing some information that has been appropriately declassified, and that's what we're urging them to do.
May I add one thing to
Yeah,
that?
so
I think it's absolutely critical that our delegation gets behind legislation requiring the FBI to brief a delegation, a congressional delegation in a state that may have attempted intrusion, and that seems to be a gap in the law right now that we all feel pretty strongly about.
So you mentioned victim protection and protecting methods. Did the FBI characterize any of what you were told today, that the investigation is ongoing and there's more information they need to learn about what happened in 2016? Or is it, we finished everything we need to know about 2016, but we're not ready to disclose that information to protect victims and protect methods?
They are continuing their investigation. I think that there's still a lot of information that they don't have, and part of the reason why they don't want to disclose the two counties and is because they don't want to reveal sources and methods to bad actors that are right now possibly interfering not only with electoral structure, but other things that are happening in the country, which we did not get information on that.
Hold on. I just
let's
want
clean that up.
I understood it a little bit differently. That it wasn't necessarily that the investigation was still ongoing, but that in their protocol, which is between DHS and the election officials, and so of course we have questions why the congressional delegation isn't included in that protocol, and it is, and it's not, but. In that protocol and the back and forth, that basically what they're classifying as the victim, which is the election official, and I think Representative Gates is absolutely right, that's a mischaracterization in and of itself. The victim's the voter. But that the victim has to basically allow the FBI to release that it was them in an attempted intrusion. We really have a lot of questions about this process. both DHS and FBI said this is an evolving process. This is relatively new, but I think it needs to evolve very quickly and a lot farther.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I just want to make clear, nothing we heard today suggests that there is any ongoing investigation regarding the 2016 election that is still occurring.
One more question, right here.
In terms of the counties that were attempted targets, and is it clear where the information is going? Are some of these counties still in the dark, or do they know about these attempts because the counties themselves identify them?
Yeah.
It was my impression that the counties are aware, we are unaware. It's my understanding that state elections officials in Florida, that our elections are run by the Secretary of State, that they are aware, but that is insufficient. The public needs to know where these intrusions are attempted and where they have varying degrees of success, and undeniably, members of Congress need to know this information. I was shocked and offended that the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security would not share information with Congress regarding counties beyond the 2 counties that we've referenced, where there was an additional identification of suspicious activity. Not an incursion, not a successful intrusion, but suspicious activity that would suggest foreign malign influence from the Russians. And I don't know who the hell they think they are to not share that information with us.
Thank you.